As much as we all enjoy making predictions, what makes the NBA so fun to me is just how unpredictable it is. So in today's video, I want to talk about some of the biggest pleasant surprises of the 2022 NBA season. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe for weekly NBA content. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. Like I said earlier, these are the most pleasant surprises of the 2022 season. There have been plenty of not so pleasant surprises as well. However, those are going to be dedicated to a different video that will probably come out around a Monday or so. Or it won't come out, and only if this video gets 7,000 likes, it will come out. Whichever one you want to believe. So with that said, let's get into it. First and foremost is DeMar DeRozan. When the Chicago Bulls signed DeMar, my immediate reaction was, wow, DeMar sure is going to make a great third option on this Bulls team. Then, well, he was a fucking MVP candidate. So, safe to say he leapfrogged some expectations. Seriously though, what DeMar did this year was damn near unprecedented. Don't get me wrong, being good at DeMar's age isn't uncommon, but to have your best season at 31 after having seemingly dropped off a bit, it's not normal. DeMar is going to make an all-NBA team this year after there were people like me saying the guy probably wasn't that much better than Marcus Smart. He's definitely been a massive and very pleasant surprise, even if the Bulls' production and play as of late has not been so pleasant. Next up, and again, this is another thing that's not been as great as of late, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Early on in the season, I was afraid that we were getting some deja vu, because if you were not aware, the first 2 seasons prior to this one, the Cavaliers have started off the season really well time and time again, and then they end up back in the high lottery, as the team's talent seems to indicate is where they belong. I was afraid that exact thing was happening when the Cavaliers started off the season strong, and while they have slipped in the standings lately, that's been due to injury and not due to the actual talent and capability of this team. The contributions of rookie Evan Mobley made on the defensive end, paired with Jarrett Allen, made for a Twin Towers inside that the league has not seen in modern basketball. And while that did come with some hindrances on offense, it was well worth having one of the best defenses in the NBA, and with the rise of Darius Garland, the offense managed to not be half bad as well. I feel quite vindicated because I was a huge believer in Jarrett Allen when he was on the Nets, and especially a huge believer in Darius Garland from the very beginning. Like, I was on the Garland is better than Sexton train before Garland was even a good NBA player. I just knew it was going to happen, and I was right. Throw in some good role players and a great coach in JB Bickerstaff, and you have yourself a beautiful surprise Cinderella season. Another surprise to most was the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, if you are a Chad like me, you would have known going into the season that the Timberwolves had a real shot of being a playoff team, as I actually made a video on why they would be the surprise team of the season. However, most people did not think that. I promise this video is not entirely I told you so's. As a result, I can't really talk too much about what was surprising about this team, as I expected most of this, so I will focus on the one thing about this team that was really surprising to me, and that is D'Angelo Russell and his defensive leap. This has gone seriously under the radar. D'Lo this year has taken on what is ostensibly the Draymond Green role defensively. Essentially, he is the guy who is picking apart the opposing offensive scheme and commanding his team through that. I've said before that Draymond Green is one of the greatest defensive players of all time, and the way that he does that better than anything else that he brings to the table defensively is by being an insanely good defensive communicator. A lot of what he brings to the table on that end has nothing to do with his body and what he's able to do physically, but his mind. And I don't just mean putting himself in the right position at the right time, but also sharing that knowledge and commanding the rest of the team's defenders to be at the right place at the right time. Now, D'Angelo Russell is not on Draymond Green's level. I don't think I need to go out of the way to say that, but in terms of the role, He's essentially playing the same role, and the Timberwolves are 13th in defense despite not having any outlandish defensive personnel. Goes to show how effective it's been. I expected them to be not bad on defense, unlike most people, but I can't say that I expected it for this reason. Another huge surprise team ended up being the Boston Celtics. Now, going into the year, if you told me that the Celtics were going to be a 50-win team and the best defense in basketball, I would be inclined to believe you. What is surprising about the Celtics is how they got here, not that they got here. Them being a 500 team at the turn of the calendar year, just for them to finish with 50 wins is truly insane. This result might not have been as surprising going into the year, but as the year went on, it became more and more surprising. The Celtics went from wow, another year of being disappointingly mediocre, to oh, this might be the best team in the Eastern Conference. Another team, and really a facet of it that has been pleasantly surprising, has been the Memphis Grizzlies and Ja Morant, but more specifically, how the Grizzlies have played without Ja Morant. Now, I don't want to dive too deep into the narrative stuff surrounding this, because a lot of people have interpreted the Grizzlies' record without Ja as instantly meaning that Ja is not valuable, and I find that absolutely ridiculous. If Ja's not valuable, I'd happily have him on my team. But no matter where you stand on the value of Ja Morant, you cannot deny that this team being 20-2 without him is fucking bananas, man. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think this roster is good. I am a long-established believer in Jaren Jackson Jr., especially a believer in Desmond Bane. Guys like Tyus Jones and Kyle Anderson are really underrated role players, and this roster is really well coached. However, 20-2 for a team that doesn't really have a star player among them, that's insane. Now, speaking of Desmond Bane, let's talk about some players outside of just DeMar DeRozan who individually were big surprises this year. Bane is a player I have been extremely high on before, even as he had entered the league. However, the way he has played this year is honestly how I expected him to play at his absolute peak, and he is doing it in year 2. Now, to be fair, he was an older rookie, so it makes sense for him and his peak to be a little bit earlier, but even still, averaging 18 and being one of the best shooters in the NBA in just your second season as the 30th pick in the draft, it's crazy. Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen, both being first-time All-Stars, also deserve a mention here, but I talked about them earlier, so not much to add now. How about LaMelo Ball being an All-Star in his second year, even though James Borrego still has not embraced him in the offense? I feel like that's not been mentioned enough. I realize it was an injury reserve, but LaMelo's an all-star in his second year. That's pretty fucking sick. As much as Andrew Wiggins has improved in Golden State since his first full year there, did anyone expect him to perform like an all-star? And to be clear, he did play like an all-star. Starter, absolutely not, but all-star, yeah, I can say that I am truly surprised by that. Tyrese Halliburton playing like a borderline all-star in his second year. Scotty Barnes, who is a prospect, wasn't expected to be a scorer at all, averaging 16 in his rookie year. Tyler Hero taking a leap that you either fully expected or fully dismissed as possible, depending on who you are. Anthony Simons being a star guard hidden deep in Portland's rotation, just finally getting that opportunity. Now, how about trades and the storyline surrounding those? I mean, did anybody have James Harden being traded to the Sixers on their bingo card going into this year, let alone him being traded there at the deadline? Because I sure as shit didn't. I mean, some of the writing was on the wall going into the season, and that writing went from a few words to a damn manuscript by the time the deadline was approaching, but even when the trade request became an official thing, it felt like it escalated really fast. I guess Ben Simmons for James Harden truly was inevitable. Again, let me remind you, I am a prophet and you should worship me as such. Another huge shock was the Porzingis trade. Now, don't get me wrong, the Mavs trying to move Porzingis is no shock, but there being zero rumor of it beforehand and it just happening in exchange for what they got, no less, really was surprising. And it ended up being a positive surprise because it worked out for both teams. Porzingis has looked good in Washington, and Spencer Dinwiddie has found new life in Dallas. I really thought the Mavs lost that trade severely, but turns out it was a win-win and Dallas is going in a positive direction as a result. Going down this list, I did not necessarily go in any kind of crazy detail as to why these things were surprising, but I wanted to make sure that I covered all my bases and covered pretty much everything about this season that was surprising in a positive way. There might be some stuff that I missed, and I'm sure it's going to be pointed out to me in the comments section, but in general, I feel like I covered most of my bases here. And it's not over yet, because we can fully expect some surprises in the 2022 playoffs, and God knows I am dying for them. Each day seems to be going slower and slower. I need playoff basketball in my life. Anyways, shout out to Rudy for editing this video, but that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like, subscribe for and make content like this, and keep watching music.